What's going on, everyone? My name is UnderTheRadar and welcome back to the Draft League Viabilities. In this video, we're going to be talking about something that was requested that I loved, that I wanted to definitely talk about, and that is going to be my boy Dragonite. So, Dragonite is a really cool Pokemon. I love this thing in Draft League format. I think it is one of the most scary Pokemon to play against. I think it's stupid good. So for those of you who don't know why I think this Pokemon is so good, this multi-scale ability is busted. Basically, if it's at full HP, it can take pretty much any hit in the entire game. I've seen it take Sub-Zero Slammers from things before, so I've seen it take some really insane hits, which make it a really threatening setup sweeper. Honestly, one of the scariest setup sweepers in the game, because it also does have access to priority and extreme speed. It has Dragon Dance. It also has an insane move pool that allows him to be able to run Z moves very reliably. Like Z Fly is very good. Groundium. It can run like Steelium. It can run a bunch of different sets and a bunch of different Z moves to make it very scary. And on top of that, it also has a pretty decent special attack stat, so it can also be a special wall breaker if your opponent has a team that can be broken down specially, like a Chestnut Incineroar core, for example. It can't break through that with like it can break through it with Z Fly plus Earthquake, but with Intimidate, Shuffling, and ensuring that like you just predict the Z move correctly, it is actually able, it's pretty hard to break through it. But with a special move set with like Hurricane plus Surf, you can do it. Or I don't think it gets Air Slash, which kind of sort of sucks, but it does get Hurricane plus Surf. So how do you build around this thing when drafting? Well, obviously you want to ensure that you are not weak to hazard stack literally at all. I put out a video on how to ensure that your team is not weak to hazard stack. If you want to, go ahead and check that out. But basically, there are some big check boxes that you need to make sure of that you have. You need to make sure that your big offensive threats are not weak to spikes plus toxic spikes. You need to have a grounded poison. You need to have some sort of really good deterrent, and you also want to make sure that you have good hazards yourself. So for this thing, the first thing that I say that you need is you need a really good deterrent, and I said this in that video, but I think Xatu is one of the coolest deterrents in the entire world because it has access to U-turn, Roost. It also does have access to defog with Magic Bounce, so it does give you that reliable defogger in case hazards do get set up and you weren't really expecting it. But it also has Baton Pass, it has Calm Mind, it can be a setup sweeper, really good speed, and really average stats overall, but it has Clefable Syndrome. And Clefable Syndrome, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, really mediocre stats, lives a stupid amount of hits for no goddamn reason. It's really cool, and that's why I love Xatu. But with the Magic Bounce ability, you can EV this thing to take on most Stealth Rockers and prevent yourself from ever having to deal with Dragonite. So that right there helps out with spikes, toxic spikes, some stealth rocks. In order to ensure that you have a really good defogger outside of Xatu, to ensure that like you can get rid of like even stealth rocks whenever you need to, I think Empoleon has one of the best. Wow, I'm sorry for moving my mic. I don't know if you guys heard it. I'm using the new mic, so I'm still trying to get used to it. I think Empoleon is one of the best matchups against Dragonite. Super resist to ice, meaning that ice shards, ice beams, icicle crashes, doesn't really care about it. Dragonite resists fighting, it's immune to ground. This thing, it doesn't really want to take electric hits, and neither does Dragonite, but you can deal with that super easily with just a good ground type. But on top of that, this thing gives you a switch into fairies, and that is always nice. And it gives you another, well, not another because you don't have a reliable stealth rocker yet, but it gives you a stealth rocker as well as another reliable defogger. Typically, people aren't going to bring hazard stack against an Empoleon. It just typically doesn't work out that well because it's so good at defogging. Envy calls it best defogger for a reason. So this right here is my sweat. No, I'm so sorry. I've been watching too many TikToks. So this right here ensures that your Dragonite should always be at full health coming in, meaning that you're able to set up a Dragon Dance for free and potentially sweep through somebody's team late game if necessary. So now that you've covered that really big aspect of it, you want to ensure that Dragonite, in my opinion, you want it to be able to run Dragon Claw, Fly, Roost. If you can run like these 4 moves every single week, you will be able to break through so many people's teams. However, this means that you would need like the Flying EMZ. So it need to be a Z mover, of course, if you have like Z captains. But of course, as you guys know, I think that free Z moves is the best way to go. And with this, what it allows you to do is it allows you to break through everything, including steel type. Including fairy types. The one thing you can't is steel types. So you need something that can bait in steel types, that can beat it, or you need to be able to trap them. And this is where some really cool lower tier picks come into play, because I think that Magneton is super, super cool. This core right here is a very common core that has been around since even before I was in the Pokemon community. It's called Dragmag. You use your Magneton to trap steel types, and then I like Magneton more than something like a Dugtrio, because this thing gets Magnet Rise. Wait, I can't type. Magnet Rise, meaning that it can't even be hit by an earthquake. So you can trap it, you can get rid of it, and then you have a Z-Fly Dragonite ready to just claim a kill after that. It forces opponents to run Shed Shell on their steel types, meaning that if you draft something like a Terrakion, which is something that I want to suggest with this thing as well, I'll put that in here so you guys can see it. They can't run something like a Choppleberry or a Shookaberry to be able to take a hit from Terrakion. And this also puts on a lot of pressure onto bulky fairy types, bulky water types, things of that nature. And what's even cooler is you do have a pretty good mid to low tier Volturn core, and I think that this is one of like the coolest 5 Mon cores that I personally have ever come up with. I've been thinking about doing Dragonite for a while, and anytime that I look at something like Dragonite, like Salamence, like anything that can set up super easily on things, I always look at Magic Bounce, because I don't want them to be like beat down by hazards. And then I also look at something like Dragmag. I think Dragmag is one of the coolest things in the entire world. So at this point in time, Dragonite is typically put in tier 1. I think it should be in tier 2. This is typically in tier 1 or tier 2. So you could potentially get another tier 1 depending on like tiering. You could potentially get another really good tier 2, because this is typically tier 3, and then tier 4 or 5. So you can still get a lot of really good mons even with these 5. Like I wouldn't suggest something like a Tapu Koko. You could go like Celesteela if it makes it, but 3 steel types is really bad. So I would go with something that has like a ground immunity, and then I would also try to pick up a fire immunity, so a flash fire Pokemon. One that comes to mind that I think matches up pretty good offensively is Chandelure. Chandelure, I think it matches up pretty well, because like while you are really weak to ground with this team, you can remedy that with like a Levitate-mon like Mesprit. You can get a flying type like Mega Pidgeot or Hydreigon or something like that. Like, that's Double Dragon though, but you know what I mean. You can get like a decent Levitator. Like, hold on, let's do this. Let's do this just to look at what Levitators we could possibly get. Or a flying type. Like a flying type definitely works with it too. Could go Weezing for like low tier toxic spikes. That's pretty cool. I think Mesprit is like one of the coolest ones. I actually had Dragonite, Empoleon, Electros on a team together, and it was really nice. Vikavolt is pretty cool, but that gives you double electric. But you know what I mean. Like, Mesprit gives you another Stealth Rocker. It gives you a bunch of really cool options, and it also gives you Healing Wish, which I think is another really cool aspect to the team that I think the team needs. And as I said before, with Xatu, your opponent is probably not going to be bringing hazards that often, and even if they do, Empoleon is a pretty good staple to your team, meaning that you would be able to defog away the hazards pretty easily. So this is how I would personally go about building our Dragonite. Some main staples for sure are the Xatu and the Magneton. Empoleon can be switched out for another like Defogger or another Hazard Remover or something along those lines, but Xatu with Magic Bounce and Magneton with Magnapult to trap the bulky Steel types is the main key that I would suggest with anything around Dragonite. But guys, with that is where I'm going to end off the video. Thank you all very much for watching. If you did, please make sure to leave a like down below for me. It helps out my channel a ton, and the growth has been phenomenal recently. Thank you all so much, and make sure you leave some suggestions down in the comment section below, and I will make sure to go through as many of them as I can. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.